Welcome to Shedding the Shame. I'm your host, Tammy Wong. This is where women stop whispering about the hard things. No performing, no fixing, no pretending we're fine. Just honest conversations about what we've carried, what it cost us, and how we rebuilt. You don't need a perfect story. You just need the courage to tell the truth. You are not broken. You are not dramatic, and you are not alone. Let's shed the shame. Everyone, and welcome back to Shedding the Shame. I'm here today with Sheena Yap Chan. Sheena is a Wall Street Journal and Publishers Weekly bestselling author, TEDx speaker, keynote speaker, strategist, and award-winning podcaster, recognized for her work in elevating women's leadership and self-confidence through the power of media and visibility. She is the founder of the Confidence Through Visibility movement and host of the Tao of Self-Confidence podcast, ranked in the top 0.5% globally, with over 1.3 million downloads and 800 plus interviews featuring celebrities, CEOs, and cultural icons. Her debut book, The Tao of Self-Confidence, was named one of the top 20 best self-confidence books of all time by Book Authority, while her latest release, Bridging the Confidence Gap, is a bold call to reimagine leadership by making visibility and self-trust core competencies. Through her signature Visible framework, Sheena delivers transformational keynotes and corporate programs that help organizations bridge the confidence gap, retain diverse talent, and build cultures where women are seen, heard, and respected. Her work has been featured on NBC News, Fox, Mind Valley, and the Manila Times, and she has spoken for global brands including NASA, Live Nation, and UKG. Sheena believes that confidence is something we can build, and that visibility creates the impact we wish to see in the world. Thank you so much for being here today with me, Sheena.
Thank you, Tammy, for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
Yeah, I was really glad when you reached out. For those of you who don't know, I am married to a Chinese man. I have two biracial daughters. And so talking about being an Asian woman and visibility around that is really important to me and making sure I'm raising my daughters the right way. So I look to you definitely as a role model for that. Let's get into it. So you shared that growing up in Asian culture, shame played a big role in your experience. So can you paint a picture of what that looked like for you as a young girl?
Yeah, I think especially as Asian women, we've been taught every single rule there was possible. We've always been told to never make any noise, to do as you're told and stay in the background. And, we don't want to do anything that would shame the family name, shame your image, tarnish what you're perceived as. And it really takes a toll on us because it feels like we have to follow every single thing and not show up as our true selves. And shame really does play a huge part in Asian culture. Collectively, we've been taught to just keep things safe, stable, don't do anything outside of what you're told to do. And again, because of that, a lot of women, especially Asian women, feel like they can't make their first move. They're afraid to show up. They're afraid to be visible because of what we were taught. I mean, I had to unlearn so many things in my culture just so that I can relearn new things and really show up as who I am. Because I do believe in visibility, when done right, when done properly, it helps you get the opportunities that you were seeking. So yes, a lot of being quiet, being in the background, and just being told what to do. And because we also had to show up as the perfect daughter, perfect wife, sister, whatever that may look like, it takes a toll again because perfection is not attainable. And if we make a mistake or we feel like we have some imperfection, it's seen as a liability when it's our greatest strength.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we as women struggle with, playing by the rules and all of that. And then you add a whole another layer of cultural norms to it. And it's, even more demanding on you as a person and how you feel you have to show up. So can you talk about some of the unspoken rules that you feel like you had to follow when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things I had to do was just, again, respect the hierarchy, right? I mean, it is important to respect your elders, right?
For
But
sure.
at the same time, you have to question some of the things that they do. If it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense, if it helps us, or if it tarnishes us, even with tradition, right? There's certain traditions that we do that doesn't make any sense, but we do it for the sake of tradition. And when I question it, it's always we do it because of tradition, not realizing why do we do it? What's the root cause of it? And why is it important? And I'm not saying all traditions are bad, but there are some traditions that really hurt us, that really affect women. And so it is important to bring light into it. It is important to question it so that we stop hurting each other and creating a domino effect. So for me, those were some of the things. And also, like, we're not, what's seen in like North America is totally seen as something different in Asia. So like,
Totally.
if I were to speak my mind or speak my opinions, I mean, here in Canada or America, it's normal to share your views, share your opinions. But, in Asia, if I did that in front of my uncles and aunts, they would be like, why are you talking back? Why are you being disrespectful? But for me, it's just a simple gesture of sharing my opinions. So
Mm-hmm.
there's still a huge contrast. Those are some of the things I had to do, and realize, later on, like, why did I do this? Why was this important? Why are we hurting ourselves for the sake of tradition? It is important to question it
Mm-hmm.
and figure out why we do it.
Yeah. Speaking of tradition, like as you talk, was there one specific thing you're thinking of that was one that you found to be hurtful that you spoke against?
Yeah, especially in Chinese culture, men were allowed to have multiple wives and concubines. And that's a lot of historical trauma brought on for every generation of women. And we never questioned it. We just followed it. And the reason why they did that was because it was just getting more chances of men
Getting a
carrying
son.
sons to carry
Mm-hmm.
the family name. And that
Totally.
that that all its own is a big deal, right? Like if you have a son, it's like the golden boy, they're carrying the family name. But if you have a daughter, it's seen as a liability. It's like, how are they going to carry the family name when really, if it's not for women, we wouldn't have sons to carry.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
so
Great
for
point.
me, that's a big one, because it also transfers, right? That trauma transfers to generation, thinking
Mm-hmm.
that we're just a number. If one man likes us, despite having other women, that it's okay when it's not okay, of course, right?
Yeah.
And if we
Yeah.
don't do the proper work, if we don't go through the proper channels to heal through that, then it's gonna be carried on in future generations. And
Mm-hmm.
there's still other cultures that promote that practice that, and saying it's okay when really it's not. And I get
Yeah.
it, to each their own. I'm not here to, I personally would not, but everyone's different.
Yeah. Yeah, you bringing up the sons and daughters. I mean, so my husband's Chinese, and his parents both grew up in Hong Kong, and so we had two daughters. And I remember worrying a bit, like, oh, we're the only. He has one sister, and she didn't have kids, so we're the only, grandkids of his mom. And I was worried that she'd be disappointed that we didn't have a boy, and she never was. To her credit, and neither was my husband. He was so excited. He loves being a girl dad. But he was raised here, very Canada raised versus like Chinese raised in terms of traditions. But yeah, that was a relief to me because I was like, oh no, like, am I going to be shamed for not bringing a boy to the family? As this white chick. So luckily, yeah, there's been change. I feel like at least in our family with that. So how did those expectations shape the way that you saw yourself and your voice growing up?
I mean, growing up, I was always afraid of what other people might think of me. As Asian women, we're taught to take care of everybody else and serve everybody else and forget the most important to take care of, which is ourself. I
Mm-hmm.
was never taught to love myself unconditionally. I was taught to just love the good parts of me and dismiss all the bad stuff, when really loving yourself is including the good, bad, and ugly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what true unconditional love is. And I always felt like I needed approval from my elders or even from my parents, especially in Asian culture, right? I don't know if you've ever seen Turning Red or if your daughters have seen it.
Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. And, in that movie, the main character was like, I love my parents, they feed me, they take care of me, and all they ever ask me to do is follow every rule that they tell me to do, right?
Yeah.
And that takes a toll, especially if we're trying to go out there and do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to, resist because, we don't want to shame our family. We don't want to, disappoint them. We want to seek approval. And especially that took a toll on me. I felt like if I didn't get their approval, then I wasn't worthy. So there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of worth tied to these traditions that hurt Asian women,
Yeah.
specifically. It is important to be okay and like set boundaries, right? Being able to say no instead of saying yes to every single thing. And that hurts us because the next time you say yes, it might not be a situation you can come out of. So it is
Mm-hmm.
important to talk about these because for so long, we've been seen as quiet, submissive, obedient, never make any noise, never make any trouble. So anytime we would speak up, then it's like, oh, she's wild.
Right.
Something's wrong with her. When really no, it's about standing up for ourselves, advocating for ourselves, and then changing the narrative, dismantling the negative stereotypes we still go through today.
Yeah. I think the quiet submissive stereotype has been very prevalent. And I think it's changing for sure as you see more actresses and celebrities and things speaking out in Asian culture. And it made me think of, I don't know if you're a Bachelor or Bachelorette fan or watcher, but there was an Asian Bachelorette a few years back and named Jen. And she was a physician's assistant student and she was the first Asian Bachelorette. And it was a big deal. And I remember she was on The Bachelor first, and people saying, like, her kind of having that reputation of, oh, she's really outspoken and really wild. I'm like, she wasn't. She's a very intelligent woman who knew what she wanted. And because she's Asian, that seemed out of the box, you know? It's like, no, she's just a young woman who's trying to find love, looking for what she wants. And so I think that like novelty of Asian women speaking out is something that is still being challenged, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately it is, but I mean, progress looks like taking one step forward and five steps back,
Yep.
unfortunately, right?
Yep.
And it's a lot of work. It's not easy, but in order to make these changes, we have to be seen. We have to be in the spotlight to show others
Mm-hmm.
what's possible. A couple weeks ago, I spoke at an event and there was a lady that followed me on LinkedIn and she took action on what I taught during that workshop. And today she's like, "Oh my God, because of what you mentioned, like I've got my first speaking engagement."
Amazing.
Yeah, and to me that is a big deal, right?
Huge
Especially for
deal.
a woman, because for so long, we've been seen as, we can't do that, we can't do this, we can't do that, when we're more than capable than
Hmm.
we realize. And once bridge how capable you are because how versus how capable you feel, when you can bridge that, you become unstoppable. And it's important to have more female speakers in the speaking world. I speak at a lot of events and sometimes I'm the only woman. It's daunting
Ah.
sometimes. But I understand that if I don't put myself in those positions, then nothing happens. And being in those
Hmm.
stages is important because we're seen as leaders, we can influence decisions, we can change the narrative. And so for me, it is important. And to see someone like her telling me that she got her first speaking engagement because of what she learned from my talk, that's a big deal for me. And it just makes me realize what else is possible when you just keep putting yourself out there and being in front of the people that need your message.
Hmm. Yeah, I always say telling your story gives another person permission to tell theirs. So you never know who you will encourage, motivate, like inspire by something you say. Yeah, and it can change their life and it's really powerful. So I'm glad that you're showing up there. And yeah, hopefully the you being the only woman thing will change because it needs to. For women outside of Asian culture, is there anything about the pressures that you face that we might not understand or realize?
I think well, of course, every woman has their own story, but I think there's just certain traditions that people outside of Asian culture don't understand and just need to take time to learn about it. Like back in China, um, women binded their feet
Yeah.
to make it look smaller, and it's a vanity thing. In fact, my great
Hmm.
grandmother did that. I didn't even realize it.
Wow.
And
Wow.
when you think about it, that's painful.
So painful. You're breaking your bones. I
Yeah,
read, was it Memoirs of a Geisha? I read years ago where it described that in detail.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
horrific.
when I was writing my first book, that's when I first found out about it. And then my aunts were telling me that my great grandmother did the same thing. And even for Asian or more Oriental people, they don't have a line on their eyelid.
Hmm.
So a lot of Asian women actually get surgery just to have that eyelid to look more westernized.
Hmm.
And some may not understand that because, especially now with the rise of Korean beauty products and like Asian pop stars,
Yeah.
more people want that instead. But
Yeah.
back then, we thought the beauty of standard is looking more Caucasian and having bigger
Hmm.
eyes, and so doing that line was like very prevalent in many countries in Asia, and even just
Hmm.
whitening the skin, right?
I
People
was
don't
just going to say
understand
that.
how that's a
Yeah.
big beauty standard in Asia. It's like
Hmm.
whitening products everywhere. Meanwhile, here we want a tan. We want a tan all day. So,
Yes.
so when I
Yes.
would get a
So
tan
different.
when I get a tan from the beach in the Philippines, and my grandma would see me, Like she would literally say, "Oh my God, what did you do to yourself? You look so ugly. You look so dark." Even though it's just like a tint. Like,
And it's like that's what my skin does naturally when I'm outside.
yeah.
Can't do much about that. Yeah, the whiteness thing for sure is a huge difference. I'm so white. I'm very, very pale. And that is seen as a great thing when I'm in Hong Kong, right? Because as I've been told, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, please, but tan represents that you're working in the fields. And if you are fair, that means you have enough money that you don't have to work outside.
Yeah.
So it's a sign of wealth,
Yeah,
which
that is,
here a tan is a sign of wealth. It's
yeah.
such a funny, not funny, but it's just an interesting double standard and how it's viewed in different countries. What did it cost you emotionally to go against these expectations and these traditions?
I mean, I went through my own depression thinking maybe I was doing this all wrong. Maybe I thought I was going crazy because I wanted to do something different while everyone was, doing what was told of them to do, right? And everyone lives life differently. How you live your life is up to you, right? If you want having a 9 to 5 job and being with your family, that's fine. I think people, tend to put down what other people do. Like everyone's in their own journey. Like, don't be ashamed of the life that you want. Some people just want simple needs, others want bigger needs. Others want have a mission, some want to live simple lives, and I think that's totally okay. But for me, when I decided to do something outside the norm, of course, you had family members who would question me, who would make fun of me, who would think I was nuts for going out there and doing something different. But I was very consistent and persistent, and I just knew that it was going to go somewhere, right? Even if I had no clue where it was going to go, I just knew it was needed, especially growing up in Toronto, not being able to see anybody that looked like me. For me, representation was very important because growing up here, I just never felt like I was good enough. I always felt like I had to show up a certain way and be a certain way, or even have a more westernized name. And I never wanted the next generation to go through what I went through. I have nieces and nephews, I have, my friends' kids, and I don't want them to I don't want them to see that who they are is a liability, because who they are is their greatest strength. They're beautiful just the way they are, especially with the rise of social media. Like, our next generation is also dealing with more anxiety, more mental health
Oh, yeah.
issues. They see a photo of a woman who's perfect in every way, perfectly curated, and they don't even realize the consequences. They don't see the behind the scenes, what that person is going through, or how heavily edited that photo is.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why it's important to show up as authentic and be real, especially with AI on the rise. There's going to be a lot of AI deep fakes and AI
Oh,
this,
yeah.
AI that. And so being human will be your superpower. Being your true
Absolutely.
human self will be your superpower, the good, bad, and the ugly. There's a reason why we love watching reality TV shows, right? Because they're a hot mess. And, in this world, we're all messy. We're all messy. And I think sometimes we can appreciate that they show up as messy because it just makes them more human. And we realize we're not alone in this journey.
Totally. Yeah, I post on social media regularly because of what I do for work now. And because I have two young daughters, it's very important to me. I don't use filters, no judgment on people who do. I just don't, because I have hair loss. I'm trying on wigs, I'm showing imperfection. And I think it's really important to show the reality and be transparent. And sometimes I might be a little too transparent, but I'd rather go that way than act like life is perfect all the time, because that's just not a reality. And I want my kids to know that it's okay if their life doesn't always, go as planned. Just like that is the reality for everyone, even if you don't see it. So what was the turning point for you in terms of really challenging the norms, and how did that experience shift things for you?
I think for me, it was when my aunt passed away from a horrific accident. It was probably like 13 or 14 years ago. It made me realize how how short our life was. And I didn't want to look back and have any regrets. I was still working my 9 to 5 job. And there were times where I would sit there and think, is this all that I have to life? Like, work till I'm 60 and then retire? Like, for me personally, I just couldn't see that. And
Yeah.
again, everybody's different, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has different life choices, different situations, but I always knew I wanted to do something more. And then seeing that was really the catalyst. Okay, I still have a lot of time. What can I do? Where can I start? How can I start doing this? It just kind of started from there and then figuring it out as I go. Did I always have it right? No. Have I attempted things and failed? Yes. Have I made a lot of mistakes? Yes. Were there times where I questioned myself? All the time. But I don't think I would trade it for anything because I've been able to do everything that I've ever wanted and not have regrets. Everything else now for me literally is a bonus.
Yeah.
It's good and bad because sometimes when you've done everything you've ever wanted, sometimes you don't have the motivation to go out there and do something else, right? Versus if you have a mission, you're set on it, you're willing to do whatever it takes, you're going to keep going regardless of the circumstances. But if I died tomorrow, I mean, I would be okay. I wouldn't regret anything if I died tomorrow.
That's amazing. And I think not too many people can say that. So good for you. And yeah, we all make mistakes. And I think that there's a lot of power in mistakes because it helps you learn and it helps you get to where you want to go. So I think those are necessary. When you were doing your 9 to 5 job, when was that and what were you doing at the time?
I worked an office job, had my own cubicle, talking to clients all day on the phone. And I actually liked what I did, but I just didn't know if it was for me. And then also just being in an office setting, I didn't know if that's something I really wanted in my life. So that's why I decided I wanted to do something different. But when it comes to visibility, I have a different like a different view on that. A lot of people, when they think of visibility, is like, how can I go viral? How can I get more views? How can I get more followers? How can I be everything everywhere all at once? Being visible is not about being everything everywhere all at once. It is part of it only when you are in front of the right decision makers, when you have access to the right opportunities, the right platform, the right decision makers. I mean, I've had LinkedIn posts that has gotten over 1 million impressions and has done nothing for me. But, I was able to send a private message to someone who used to work for Wiley, and that ended up, giving me the opportunity to not write 1, but 2 books for the publisher, which is a huge deal because Wiley's a really big publisher. They've been around for hundreds of years. They're in the top 5 publishers. So that's what I mean when it comes to visibility, because once you're in front of the right decision makers, then you have access to so many different things, being able to speak on stages, seeing your books at bookstores all over the world. I was able to see it here in the US, in the Philippines. My friend from Australia also took photos. People from Singapore also took photos. So that for me is big. That for me is what visibility is. That's why for me speaking was so important, because how do you expect to be seen, to be treated as an expert if you're not out there, putting yourself out there in front of those stages, getting access to the right decision makers, the right audience? Because you also need to learn to build trust. And in order to build trust, they need to see you, they need to hear you, they need to know about your framework, they need to know about how you help clients, how you become their problem solver. And for me, speaking is a great way to do that.
Yeah. Speaking of speaking, what fears came up for you when you started speaking publicly?
I still have fears till this day. I still get anxiety. I still get nervous. I mean, for me, it's like, what if I don't have the right answers? What if people think I don't make sense? What if I fumble? What if I blank out? There's so many things, but the more I kept doing it, the better I got at it. I always believe practice makes progress. And sometimes you have to do everything wrong to get everything right. So I did everything wrong to get everything right. And I wouldn't trade it for the world because, again, our mistakes is what leads us to our opportunities. And it's okay to make those mistakes. It's okay that we go through a struggle. It's part of our journey, because if you're the problem solver, you have to understand what that struggle looks like for someone, so that when you work with them, you can understand their pain and realize that you were able to overcome it, and you'll show them the way.
Yeah. I know you just gave an example a little bit ago about a woman who got up the courage to speak because of something you said. Are there other examples you have of how Asian women specifically have felt this visibility message, how that's resonated for them, what you've heard from people?
Yeah, I speak to a lot of Asian women professionals, entrepreneurs, coaches. And one of their biggest barriers is being visible, because we're not taught to be visible. We're not taught to put ourselves out there. And if you're not willing to put yourself out there, how do you expect people to connect with you, buy your products and services? We've been taught self-promotion is seen as not ladylike, but I mean, who really decided that, right?
Right.
Self-promotion is, for me, advocating for yourself, advocating for your services, advocating for your talents, your skills. And so you need to be your biggest advocate, and that means you have to put yourself out there. Is it scary? Yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
don't like to promote myself, but I understand how powerful it is and how it leads to other opportunities. And for me, that's a big deal, especially in the workplace, especially in Asian culture. We've always been taught that if you work hard, the results would speak for itself. That is not true.
Yeah.
So not true. Sometimes you're just seen as a hard worker and you're overlooked for your talents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're like, well, why didn't I get picked? Why didn't they, I did the work. But are the people who are the decision makers, do they know that you did the work? Do they know that you were the one who did that? So you have to be your own advocate. You have to stand up for yourself and say, hey, I'm the one who did that. I'm the one who created that report. Because I think my biggest fear is that you do all the work and then someone takes credit for it. And that happens all the time. And people don't even realize it.
That's happened to me from a male superior when I was in biotech. I did all the work and my manager's manager took the credit for it. And I will never forget how pissed off I was for that. And didn't feel like I was able to really speak out against it because it had already been said. What am I going to do? Oh, that was my idea, and be seen as a problem and complaining. So I totally resonate with that. And I think it's very, very important to teach the younger generation that, yeah, your ideas are your own and you should be standing up for yourself and saying, I did this, and being proud of it. And that not being seen as boastful, but that being seen as, this is my work and I stand behind it. So I know you just said you don't like to promote yourself, but I want to give you a chance to promote yourself. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about your podcast, about your books, and about what led you to doing both of those things and what it's taught you.
Yeah, so I started my podcast, The Tao of Self-Confidence, in September of 2015, and I really did that as a platform to highlight Asian women's voices. I never saw any platforms that did that. And back then, there was hardly any Asian people podcasting. There was like one guy from California who was doing it. So when I saw him did it, I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
And I just started interviewing all these women, not really knowing where it was going. The first 5 years, I didn't even know what to do with it when it comes to monetization. I just wanted to create stories. And eventually it led me to writing books, speaking, working with clients, doing workshops, consulting. And I never would have thought I've ever would, even do that if I didn't have the courage to just go out there.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things I talk about is my visible framework, because especially, again, technology is on the rise and AI is on the rise. The thing that people need the most is, building those that was once called soft skills, being human, being able to build confidence, leadership. How are we going to do that? And so by utilizing that framework, it helps individuals, professionals, entrepreneurs show up more authentic and more human and be able to tackle whatever comes their way. So it is a framework that's derived from the word visible. So each letter represents something. So V is for voice, I is identity, S is for spotlight, I is for inner work, B is belief, L is leverage, and E is elevation. Because you can have the best software, the best technology, the best strategies ever, but if you don't put it to work, if you're not, putting yourself out there, then again, it's wasted effort.
I love that. And then with your books too, you just put out a second one not long ago. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that one and how that one's different.
Yeah. So my latest book is Bridging the Confidence Gap. It is a leadership book for women. And one of the reasons why I wrote it was because there was a report from the World Economic Forum that mentioned that total gender parity would be achieved at the earliest in the year 2154.
God.
But that's when
so
I wrote
depressing.
But that's when I wrote the book. So actually it's delayed 4 more years. So now it's 2158. And for me, it was like, why is it women, why do we have this? Why do we have this stat? And as women, we're amazing. We're more than capable to go out there and do something great. But how we perceive ourselves really stops us from moving forward. Confidence gap is having that disconnect with how capable you are versus how capable you feel. And if you if you can't bridge those together, you're not going to go out there and take the first step. You're not going to go out there and overcome your fears. You're not going to go out there and just do it scared. And so it is important to bridge that so that you can show up as your best self. I talk about things like self-promotion, imposter syndrome, what happens when we don't have enough women in these leadership roles, right? And of course, no one wants those years to delay even more, right? We want to bring those numbers down. I mean, think about it. That's like 5 generations before we could not even if it's guaranteed, if we could
Right.
possibly see gender parity.
That's an awful stat. And yeah, it's my goal to do everything I can to bring that down too. And do it scared is one of my newer mottos. So I love that you said that. And you're definitely an inspiration to me because I feel like I'm exploring this new thing and niche thing, and definitely a visibility issue with hair loss in women, and trying to normalize that and get our stories shown. And so I will have to buy your book because I think it will help me. So what do you hope changes for the next generation of Asian women?
For me, it's just learning to love themselves for who they are, the good, bad, and the ugly. I've noticed even in the next generation, they still strive for this perfection. And I have to remind them, like, it's okay to make a mistake. Perfection isn't real. Don't be afraid to be imperfect. Be okay with it. It's not the end of the world. Because even as young as 9 or 10, this anxiety to be perfect, it still lives within them. And it's like, how do we help that younger generation get out of that? How do we show them that being imperfect is okay? Being imperfect is your superpower. Being imperfect will be your competitive edge. Because for so long, we've been taught to show up a certain way, to be a certain way, but not everyone can follow that because we're all different. We have different experiences, different upbringings, different values. So it is important to show up as who you are, the good, bad, and the ugly, and be okay with imperfection. Like for me, you see my hair right now, it's black or very dark brown. But underneath, there's so much white hair, you wouldn't even believe it if I just like flipped it up. But I'm not going to go out there and color my hair because I'm going to get old. I'm going to have gray hairs and it's totally okay.
Well, girl, I have a lot of grays too. I just have a wig on top of it all, so
Yeah.
you don't see them. But my mother-in-law, she's been dyeing her hair black since she was 30. She started graying at 30. And so she's, I think, 78 now and still dyeing her hair because it is seen as it's a cultural norm, right? All of the aunties have their hair pretty much still dark as well. So it's definitely there. As you know, as we've talked about, I have 2 biracial daughters. So as a parent of 2 half Chinese, half Caucasian girls, what would you want me to understand about raising daughters who might navigate parts of this culture?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I've interviewed so many biracial, multiracial, Asian women on the podcast. And I think for them, they just feel like they're in a gray area. They're not one or the other. They're not Asian enough, they're not Caucasian enough, or whatever other, culture that they have. And I think it's important to tell them they do belong. They don't belong in one culture, they belong in 2 cultures or 3 cultures. I also have nieces and nephews that are biracial, and I always want to make sure I incorporate both and always make them feel like they belong. Because that's the pattern that I've noticed when I was interviewing women who were multi or biracial, that they never felt they never felt accepted in either parts, and they felt very alone. Like there's no black and white for them, right? They're in this gray area. They're not really sure who they are, what they do, what their culture is, or what defines them. And so I think being able to include both, being able to help them realize you belong in both, we love you just the way you are. That I think for me, I think that's what would help out. Because again, I do that with my nephews as well. Like I show them Chinese culture, and they're also part Lebanese, so I show them Lebanese culture. I'll buy a book in Arabic so they can learn that, or try different foods, or show them different things, because it is important to understand that they're not just one culture, they're 2 or maybe even more.
Yeah, that's really important. And it's something that's really important to me as a white person who did not grow up in, Asian culture, that they know that part of them, that their grandma, teaches them some Cantonese, that we go to Chinese New Year dinner with the whole big family. They eat, dim sum, they eat all the different foods, that they're exposed to that, and that they're proud that they are Chinese. I never want them to feel any shame for having that part of them, and I want them to explore it more. Because I think my husband has a little bit of regret that he was raised in such a Canadian culture that he stopped speaking Cantonese when he was younger. And there's not a lot of traditions that he kind of carried forward as much. So I think that with our little family, it's something I want to incorporate even more and learn more about myself. So, because I think, yeah, as they grow up, I want them to own all parts of themselves. So, what has choosing yourself given you that you didn't have before?
I think for me is um, being okay with uncertainty. You know, in Asian culture, you live one way of life, that's it, no questions asked. And we want everything to be stable, but there's no such thing as stability. You know, the pandemic was a clear indication of that. And so I think it's important to embrace the unknown and be okay with it. Whatever happens, whatever comes your way, just be ready, just be prepared, just be okay with it. Because no matter what happens, you have it's how you respond to it that really matters the most. Is it gonna bring you down or is it gonna lift you up? So I think for me, that's what was the biggest thing, and not being able, not to worry about every little thing. A lot of us worry about things that never happen, and like the more we worry about it, the more we bring it to life. What you think is really important, right? Because sometimes you might be manifesting it into reality the more you think about it.
Yeah.
And being able to trust my own capabilities, even if I have no clue how to do it, I'll be like, yeah, I'll figure it out. In my book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, I talk about this strategy of ready, fire, aim. Just start before you're ready, take action, and course correct as you go. Yes, you'll make mistakes. Yes, it won't be perfect. But you'll live. You'll be fine. Yeah. You're going to move on, and you're going to continue to do amazing things.
And it's like the fail fast mentality versus never trying at all. If you try, you'll know what worked and what didn't. And you can, like you said, course correct, try again. But if you never try, then you never know. I mean, it's just, you have to take risks in this life, and life is short. So I love that. And I think you're a great role model for my kids and for young Asian women who are looking for that visibility and stepping into their power. So, do you have any other last messages for any women listening today that may be struggling to get to where they're feeling confident?
Yeah, I think this is something that's very important, especially in Asian culture. Be okay to ask for help, be okay to receive help. You don't have to do this work alone. Having support is okay. It's not a weakness, it's not a handout. We have blind spots for a reason because we can't see it. So that's why we need a second or third pair of eyes to pinpoint those blind spots and course correct so we can move up better than ever. So being able to listen to podcasts like this, reading books, connecting with like-minded people, know that you don't have to do this all by yourself.
Yeah. Well, the last question I like to ask people is, what does shedding the shame mean to you?
Shedding the shame is being okay to show up as your true and perfect self, regardless of your upbringing, the traditions, what you've been told. It's not always easy. Again, you have to unlearn a lot of things to relearn new things. But once you let that shame go and start putting boundaries to take care of yourself a lot better, you show up better than ever, not just for yourself, but for everyone else as well.
Agreed. Very well said. Well, please tell people where they can find you for the podcast, for LinkedIn and Instagram, all the things.
Yeah, for sure. So you can check out my podcast, The Tao of Self-Confidence, on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You can check out my website, SheenaYapChan.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can check out my other website, thetowofselfconfidence.com. For the books, you can check out both The Tao of Self-Confidence and Bridging the Confidence Gap at Indigo, Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, and other book retailers worldwide. And also on my website, you can there's a free resource that you can check out. But if you forgot anything that I mentioned, just Google my name, Sheena Yap Chan, because I'm literally the only one on the internet.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Not many people can say that. Well, and I will link your website and some of the resources in the show notes as well. So thank you, Sheena, so much for being with us today and sharing your wisdom and your message. And I know it will inspire somebody listening out there.
Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody. Thank you for being here and for listening to another powerful conversation on shedding the shame. If something in today's episode resonated with you, I want you to sit with that. Let it land. Let it remind you that whatever you're carrying, you don't have to carry it quietly. Shame survives in silence. Healing begins when we speak. If this episode moved you, share it with a woman who needs to hear it. Start the conversation. Send the text. Have the brave talk. And if you're ready to stop whispering about your own story, keep coming back. These conversations are just getting started. Until next time, keep telling the truth, keep taking up space, and keep shedding the shame.